Hey guys, welcome into Fantasy Football Academy 2020. As always, I am the Dean. I am here with Professor Chet. How are you doing today, Professor?
I'm doing really good. How are you?
Oh, hanging in there, my man. Trying to get through the COVID thing, trying to
Right.
ramp back up to go back to work and get my negative test that we need before we head back. But we got a really action-packed show for everybody today. We're talking some NFL news. Some of the COVID stuff has been finalized for the NFL. Your boy Raheem Mostert finally got his deal. Maybe not the deal that he wanted, but he got a deal that was better than what he had. We got big news on the defensive side of the ball with Jamal Adams leaving and all the back and forth between him and Lev Bell. Talking about revenge game and this, that, the other, and then we're going to get into today's topic along with a breakdown of the NFC East, my favorite. And I know it's kind of shallow. I know it's kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel, but these are my boys, and I'm rolling. I'm rolling with them. I'm riding and dying with my boys. So the team formerly known as the Redskins. So we'll get into that a little bit later, but we want to touch on some of the COVID stuff and some of the finalized versions of what the NFL is going to be doing to help curb this COVID pandemic that we're living in. They're talking about an opt-out for players, and we've already seen it with the Chiefs, their right guard. He was the first to opt out, and it's kind of an interesting story with him because he actually is an orderly outside of football, so he's choosing to opt out so that he can keep serving in that capacity. Apparently, he works at with the elderly, and he's choosing to opt out for that reason. Also, earlier today, we found out that the Pats linebacker Deontay Hightower is also opting out. So how much does that affect the Pats defense?
Oh, it's huge. I mean, you're obviously taking away one of your more talented players on defense. And for the Patriots, this is kind of an interesting year. They're starting out with a new quarterback, probably Cam Newton. It's obviously a different look, the post-Brady era. Nobody kind of envisioned what the Patriots are going to look like. They could have been in a worse situation, but now they got Cam Newton, obviously a seasoned quarterback. But it's going to be an interesting year. This whole COVID thing is interesting because if you haven't noticed in Major League Baseball, some players have opted out as well, the big one being Buster Posey of the Giants, and now it's kind of trickling down to the NFL. A lot of people are wondering what's going to happen with college football. I don't think there's going to be a season there. Who knows if there's going to be an NFL season? We could just all be talking for not.
Hey, stop with the negativity here. Come on. We're speaking it into existence here at the Academy, okay? We're thinking positively. Right. Now, we did see on ESPN Max Kellerman talking about how he believes that there is a zero chance that the NFL season will finish without this bubble like the NBA has instituted. Now, here's my issue with this is the fact that the NBA is wrapping up a season, so they can take a limited number of teams and they have the ability to put them in a bubble to police and monitor their movement and dole out whatever discipline they feel necessary for guys who violate it, and then control and monitor the movements within that bubble. But we're talking 32 NFL teams who haven't even hit camp yet and haven't even traveled. A lot of these guys won't travel. They canceled the preseason. We're going to have a whole bunch of camp going on. We're not going to be able to see rookies. We're not going to be able to see stragglers because they've gone from having 90 guys down to 80. So some of these guys like Phil Lindsay was a straggler that worked his way onto the team and got a starting role in the backfield for the Broncos. So guys like that don't have a chance this year unless somebody gets hurt, they get signed to the practice squad, and then they have to be brought on because of injury. But how crazy is this going to be without a bubble? And do you think that there could be – do you think that that could happen? Do you think that a bubble could actually be feasible with the NFL?
It could, but I just don't see it happening. I think the NBA, if you talk about the NBA, the NHL, two leagues that are obviously finishing up their season, and the NHL is going to resume this Saturday. Everybody's excited about that. If you're a hockey fan, I am as well, so I'm excited about that. But I think it's a whole different ballgame when you're talking about the NFL. Like you said, you got 32 teams. It's going to be hard to see how it all plays out. We're still trying to figure out. We've obviously canceled the whole preseason, like you said. Thank goodness for that. But then again, that hurts fantasy football owners. You don't see who you can grab. A lot of times I do my fantasy football draft. Really, my friends and I used to do it the night before the very first game. So because you can wait. Right. That's the best time to do it, in my opinion. People do it really early, and I don't like doing that because you don't know what you're going to get out of the preseason. I think it's very advantageous, so to speak, to do it the night before.
Yeah, I mean, we're doing ours. The kickoff for the draft or for the season is the 10th. It's a Thursday night game between the Chiefs and the Texans. There's going to be a ton of fantasy implications in that game with all the Chief players, with Deshaun Watson, and with whoever he's throwing to this year. And with DJ coming in and trying to, show that he's still the running back that everyone – remembers from the desert from a couple of years back. But I think that with the no preseason, people don't get too comfortable with the fact that there's not going to be this catastrophic injury, because injuries can still happen in camps. So, I mean, we look at, your boy Debo, we talked about him on here before. He got a Liz Frank injury, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
So you're talking about a foot injury for a wide receiver. It's going to affect his explosiveness. So injuries can happen. Don't get fooled into the that false sense of security that just because we don't have a preseason that we're not going to have injuries. Now, it might not be as many, and might not be as catastrophic. And as far as doing your fantasy draft, we're doing ours 2 days before draft. We're doing ours on Tuesday the 8th at Zia, and so. It's going to be – I like doing it like that. I was actually in a league where we did it a little bit before, and this was years back, and when Mike Vick was playing with Atlanta, and he broke his leg. Anybody who's a fan of the NFL, who's been around for any amount of time, remembers Mike Vick, remembers when he broke his leg, and that was catastrophic for the Falcons. But it was even more detrimental because that year, if I'm not mistaken, he was pretty much the number one guy off the board. He was the Christian McCaffrey of that year.
Yeah. So, wasn't he the face on Madden?
He was the face on Madden the year he broke his leg. So the Madden curse is real, guys.
Yeah.
Okay. We don't play with the Madden curse. That's why this year, when you draft Lamar Jackson, watch out. Okay, so he's on the cover of 2020, and even though Mahomes didn't have a great injury, his numbers did dip last year, and he was on the cover of the Madden 2019. So
didn't he have a setback? He had a little bit of an injury with his knee, or no?
I think a little, maybe.
Yeah, he had a soreness or something. Yeah,
but it wasn't much career affecting.
No.
Now, big trade out of the NFL this week. Jamal Adams finally getting his wish and getting away from Adam Gase and the New York Jets, going to Seattle. Now, Seattle paid kind of a high price just to get a safety. I mean, do you think this is a good trade? I mean,
there were a lot of rumors when the Niners were in interests. Now, John Lynch admitted that he never did contact Jamal Adams. He had made that publicly known. But there was rumors about the Niners going after Jamal Adams. A lot of Niner players were saying, let's go get him, that it would cost you 1 first-round pick. Now, if it cost me 1 first-round pick, I'm going to get one of the best safeties in the NFL today, and I'm going to throw that out there because the Niners are built. They don't need to cherish those picks. You're talking about 2 firsts. I mean, this is for a safety. It's one thing for, let's say, your Washington Redskins who threw their whole draft to get RG3. I know you remember that night very vividly.
Oh,
Um, you know,
but look, the nightmare I remember vividly as far as trades go was the fact that we did not build a dynasty through the Ricky Williams trade when we traded Ricky Williams to the Saints for their entire draft. How
yeah,
do you
yeah.
screw that up? I mean,
I can't believe the Saints made that deal. That deal was all my Ditka that year. But Seattle is really good. They put themselves now on the cusp of going forward again and obviously being a major threat. Jamal Adams is very dynamic. The cost, though, is that going to come back to haunt Seattle? I certainly hope it does, being a 49er fan. This is a great deal for the Jets. I think the Jets really might have gotten the better end of this deal because now they get to build and they get to be that whole 3 years from being 3 years away. They can maybe can speed that up a little bit with getting some good talent. But it's an interesting trade. I mean, Seattle is all in. I mean, they are. If they're going to throw,
I want to ask you this, and you bring up the Jets building for the future and the Seahawks going in for a win now at all cost approach. Does that have more to do with the quarterbacks on both teams? You have Sam Darnold with the Jets, who's a young quarterback who really hasn't stepped into his own yet, and then you have an aging Russell Wilson, who isn't going to have that in any more years. So are they trying to get better now because of the leadership, or was just a move to say, hey, we're showing our fans that we're going to win?
No, well, Pete Carroll has not said it, but he's definitely felt it, that him and Russell Wilson have that window together. That's probably maybe a 2-3 year window of greatness left in Wilson. And they know that the 49ers have rapidly got better last year. They know the Rams are obviously not going to be maybe as weird as they were last season. Arizona's going to get better. So Seattle figures, well, we got to keep up with this stacked NFC West. It's really scaring me going into this season. Yeah. And they know that their window's a little tight, but Seattle's window's kind of been like on a little bit of a roller coaster anyways, but they're always there, and they've always been there for the last decade or so.
Yeah. So moving on, staying in the same division, your boy, Raheem Mostert, got his wish as well. I feel like this is, a fairy tale episode. We're talking about wishes being granted. I'm waiting for Aladdin to pop out somewhere. But Raheem Mostert gets a restructured deal with the Niners. My understanding is that it's very incentive laden, and he goes from being one of the lowest paid, if not the lowest paid running back on the field, to one of the highest.
Right. I mean, my thing is, and I know you can agree with me on this, do not overpay running backs. It just never seems to pan out. We're going to see how we're going to see what happens to Zeke really in these next couple of years for Dallas, but they didn't really overpay for Raheem, though. They just added a few more million with a couple of incentives. It's a very friendly contract. People think Jimmy G's contract, to put in comparison, is a high-priced contract. It isn't. There's a lot of incentives that he has to meet, and the Niners have an opt-out clause every year now after the first 2 years of Jimmy G's deal. So it's really team-friendly. John Lynch has a good control on this. I love the job that he's been doing at the helm. Obviously, he's done a terrific job. He's shown that he can manage a team. I don't mind this contract. I really don't think it's that big of a deal. I think it's great that they were able to add some dollar signs to his contract and keep him happy, get some continuity in the backfield. I'm really curious to see what Jerick McKinnon can do in the backfield as well, because he's supposed to be the high price back.
Yeah, I'm not surprised that this deal got done, just for the simple fact that, and we talked about this before, Raheem Mostert was on the first year of a 3-year deal that he just signed last year. So there was really no leverage on his part. And where's he going to go where he can be a better influence? I mean, he sucked for the majority of his career, and now he gets with Shanahan, and he's
He never got a fair shake though in past teams. If you took a look at it, he never really got a fair shake. And the Niners gave him the fairest shake of them all, and he was able to thrive in it. So
now I say as far as fantasy related goes with this, I can draft him with confidence. He's RB34 on ESPN's top 300 list. Means he's going in about the seventh, eighth round, somewhere around there. Is he a reach in the fifth? If I'm sitting there and I've had the first 2 rounds to knock out my primary running backs, and he is there and sitting there in the fifth. I've gone through the first and second with the running back. I've gone through third and fourth and gotten my receivers. If I'm staring down the barrel of the fifth pick or the fifth round pick and Raheem Mostert's there, is it a reach to go get him there?
it's not a reach, Dean, but you got to think about Kyle Shanahan and what he has now. He has a healthy Jerick McKinnon. He's got Tevin Coleman still back there. They got a loaded backfield. Remember you talked about loaded backfield. Talk about Washington's backfield. Dallas has got Zeke, and they got Pollard back there. So I think that Kyle Shanahan has a tendency to maybe load up on Raheem sometimes, but I think he's going to give McKinnon that chance to be the guy as well. And of course, he's going to toss in Tevin Coleman in there as well. And of course, Kyle Juszyk's their fullback. A lot of teams don't use fullbacks, but the Niners use it to perfection. I think this guy's unbelievable. So really, it's a loaded backfield. You got a three-headed monster back there, so you kind of have to watch out if you're going to reach. But fifth round, I think, is doable if you've gotten everybody that you've gotten in those first 4 rounds.
Yeah. So look, guys, like we say, take what the draft gives you. Be water, okay? Don't be flexible. Be able to flow with the way that the draft's going, okay? If there's somebody there who's more of a primary back than Raheem Mostert, like we just talked about, if there's somebody out there that's is going to get more touches, that is going to get more opportunity, go ahead with them. You can skip on Raheem and not feel bad at the end of the draft. The worst feeling, and Chet, you can back me up on this one. The worst feeling at the end of the draft is to look back and go, I should have.
Right. Well, you're going to have those moments just because it's a wave of emotions.
You just don't want too many.
Right. And especially when you're doing a live draft, because there's a lot of testosterone in the room, and you're kind of trying to feel out other people's teams, because you have to look, as much as you're focused on your team, you have to continue to look at the board. And I think a lot of fantasy football owners fail to look at the board to see what other guys have grabbed for their squads.
Right. And guys, hey, look, yesterday we did a mock draft. I want you guys take a second, go back and look at that mock draft. It was a reach draft where we purposely reached for certain players, and we saw how that affected our team, later in the draft. So, okay, so we got all the news taken care of. Anything else on your mind for news throughout the NFL?
Not that I can think of.
We're going to get into it a little more as we break down the NFC East, but all I got to say is he's back. That's right,
boy.
Alex Smith is off of the injured list. He's starting on the PUP list, but he has been cleared by his team for football activity. I know this means absolutely nothing for fantasy, but as a Redskin fan or a Washington fan, or however we have to address ourselves now, as a Washington fan, I love the fact that he's back. I don't know how much it's going to affect the team, but he's a great story. I love Alex Smith as a player, as a person. So,
well, given that Washington is, sorry to hurt your feelings here, they're not going to be contending this season.
Hey, we never know.
And okay, you never know. That's true. Since Dwayne Haskins is going to be the guy there, you should, though, bring Alex Smith for a few reps to lift up, if there's going to be a crowd this year, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
To lift up not only the fans, but the sidelines. Like, this is a comeback story of the ages. Like,
this is epic proportions.
Epic proportions. The guy was going to die. Yeah. And that's very as dangerous as it was. I mean, you saw Project 11. I'm sure you watched it as well. Yeah. Great documentary with his wife and his kids standing by his side. And you just saw, okay, he's just showing his feet, playing with his kids. You didn't think he was, actually going to get, closer and closer. But what a great athlete. I mean, I love the guy, former
Yeah,
49er. So.
yeah. So we got a lot invested in Alex. So, okay. So we're getting into today. Brings us to the topic of the day. Outside the NFC East breakdown. 1 week gyms and season long busts. Look, every year there is that 1 week, and usually it's week 1, where somebody breaks out, has an absolutely phenomenal game, and then they fall off the edge of a cliff after you went out and dropped the guy that you probably should have kept in order to get the flash in the pan, the flavor of the week. And this is something that you have to watch out for, not just in week 1, but season long. You're going to have these guys who break out, these guys who have these that are on the waiver wire that nobody thought was going to do anything, that are forced into prominence, and then they wind up letting you down. You have to think about the environment around these players and why they were so dominant that week. We've got some examples for you. We'll start out at quarterback. Now, I don't know if Dean's got any, or if Professor Chet's got any examples, but my 2 examples for a quarterback, Case Keenum and Marcus Mariota. Okay, Case Keenum last year, week 1, scored 27.20 points. Season long, he had 108. So you're talking almost a quarter of his points for the whole season was in 1 game, and he only played 10 of them. Marcus Mariota, 24 points in game 1, in week 1. He only played 7 before he lost his job to the mustache, which is Gardner Minshew. Okay? So, or I'm sorry, to Ryan Tannehill. Tannehill in Tennessee. So, I mean, we see these guys break out, and then whether it be for injury or for poor performance, as we saw Mariota just absolutely fall apart later in the season and lose his job, these are guys who they probably weren't drafted. You're looking at them and going, man, what's going on with this guy? I know Mariota was good a couple of years ago, and then you run out and you drop somebody and you try to use him as a backup QB.
Yeah, those two are 2 of the biggest flashes in the pan, sort of type quarterbacks.
And then we have for running back, Marlon Mack, who is being drafted right now, and but this year he's got Jonathan Swift behind him, or Jonathan Taylor sitting behind him in Indianapolis. So he could come out, he could very well, with, like we talked about before, with no preseason, you really aren't going to see Jonathan Taylor out there getting the starting gig, because is he really going to win it in camp? I don't think so. If there's going to be anything, it's going to be a split backfield. It's going to be a running back by committee. It's going to be going with a hot hand. And Marlon Mack in week 1 last year scored 25 points. Now, I'm sorry, if I see a running back scoring 25 points, I'm seriously looking at this running back. Okay, because that's just an outrageous number to throw out there. But he only scored 100. He scored 167 through the whole year. Right. Malcolm Brown, 17.3 points in week 1. He only scored 57 the rest of the year. So, I mean, these guys so fell off, it wasn't even funny. Probably the one guy here, actually there's 2 guys, 1 tight end, 1 wide receiver last year. TJ Hawkinson last year scored 19 points in week 1. He had like 100 and something yards receiving with a touchdown or 2 thrown in there, and was just absolutely on fire. Then he gets hurt, fell off. He was never over 50 yards the rest of the year. I think 54 might have been his high. And he played 12 games. Sammy Watkins, week 1. Anybody who was playing fantasy football last year remembers Sammy Watkins' week 1 performance. 37.8 points. He played 14 games, so it wasn't like he got hurt and then that was the reason that he fell off. But he only scored 86 the rest of the year. So these are guys. John Ross is another one. Deshaun Jackson, Philip Dorsett.
Ross. We'll get to Deshaun Jackson in the East, in the NFC East.
Hey, look, Deshaun got hurt. He scored 27 points his first game. He scored 27.9 the rest of the year because he only played 3 games.
He's not the same player.
No, he's not. And John Ross scored 27.8, played 8 games, and only scored 67 for the rest of the year. Philip Dorsett, who actually played 14 games for the Pats, now he's no longer with the Pats. If I'm not mistaken, I think he's in Seattle. And he scored 21.5. He only has 71 for the rest of the year. So all these guys that I've just run down, these are guys who, Dorsett was on the waiver wire a lot last year. Deshaun Jackson, people had high hopes for. Sammy Watkins, just for the simple fact that he was on KC, he was being drafted high. And if that doesn't remind anyone of Clyde Edwards-Helaire this year, I don't know what will.
Sure.
Simply because you're on a high-powered offense doesn't mean that you're a high-powered player, okay? TJ Hawkinson, I like TJ Hawkinson as a late-round tight end. Now, you have to look at what's being said about him. His coach is coming out and saying that he doesn't know if he's 100% healthy. He didn't know how strong the ankle is, and that's what set him out last year. So it's something to look at through camp and to keep an eye out on the injury list. So do you have any guys that off the top of your head you can think of this year that could fall into this category of having that real blow up week 1 and then going into just utter oblivion and never coming back again?
Well, you named off some good ones. I mean, Kyler Murray could probably fall into that, where he could have like a big game, and then we don't know what's going on with him in Arizona. He's got a lot of targets.
High.
Right, because he's got all those targets.
Right.
But he's also in his second year in the NFL, and I don't want to talk about sophomore slumps, but that happens. I can't really think anybody off the top of my head. Ryan Mostert can have a big game and then kind of not really kind of get lost in the mix a little bit sometimes.
Yeah.
But it's hard to say.
Well, now I went down and I looked at the week 1 schedule, and I've got a few guys down here, and I'm gonna run them down real quick, and we'll get your thoughts on them. We'll start out with your boy Jimmy G, because week 1 he gets Arizona. He lit Arizona up both games last year. He had 8 touchdowns between both games.
Oh, I remember.
Okay, so this is a game where Jimmy G is not even being drafted, okay? So there's a lot of mock drafts that I've done where Jimmy G hasn't even been touched. So this is a guy who could come in and you look at the Niners offense and you go, hey, they got Kittle. They've got this backfield. So –
well, this is what boggles my mind, though, Dean, is if Jimmy G obviously is not somebody I'm going to grab as my first quarterback, but if you have a bench spot, and this is something fantasy football's owners should know, you don't need to necessarily grab another receiver or grab another tight end. You can grab Jimmy G and be comfortable with that just in case your starting quarterback goes down, because then you have a good, solid backup in Jimmy G. I mean, or somebody has a bad week, you can shuffle in Jimmy G. If the Niners, like I said, are going to play against Arizona, because I think the Niners are going to light up Arizona again in week 1. So this is huge for fantasy football owners that need to know this. If they don't like where their starting quarterback's going to be in week 1, you got a bench quarterback in Jimmy G and put him in there, and I think he's going to have a great day. I think he's going to throw for over 300 yards. I really do.
Good.
Have a big day.
Hey, mark that down, guys. Professor Chet is going out there. He's making a prediction for 300 yards week 1. Jimmy
Yeah.
G against Arizona.
I don't
Now,
know if they'll win that game, but they should.
you know,
They
it'll
should.
be a shootout.
Yeah.
Look, guys, if you got San Fran's defense, don't start them week 1. Okay, just saying.
They're gonna get run.
Yeah, it's gonna be nasty. Now my second guy is Tyrod Taylor, simply because he's got Cincinnati coming up. Cincinnati's defense is horrible. Okay, look, I don't care if it's Tyrod Taylor or it's Justin Herbert. We pretty much know that Tyrod Taylor is going to get the start. How far that goes is yet to be seen, because they spent such a high draft capital to get Justin Herbert as their quarterback of the future after letting Rivers walk. So Tyrod could just absolutely run over Cincinnati, and we know that Joe Burrow is going to be given enough rope to hang himself and the entire Cincinnati organization. Okay.
Yeah, no, you're right. Joe Burrow is going to be interesting to watch in the NFL. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of eyes on him, and if we don't even have a college football season, it's just going to be a lot more eyes on him.
Pretty much. Now, this next guy's we're going into running backs. This next guy is actually being drafted astronomically high. I've warned against taking this guy this high. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, simply because they're going up against the Texans. Okay, the Texans' defense is not what it used to be. Okay, we remember J.J. Watt just coming out and just being absolutely a game changer. That's not happening anymore. And we see them. It's going to be a Thursday night game. It's the kickoff for the NFL season. All eyes are going to be on them. They're hanging up their banner for the Super Bowl. Okay, and anytime that you get the opening game against the defending Super Bowl champs, they want to come out and they want to make a statement, and they want to drive you into the ground. So I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire is the new toy in Andy Reid's offense, and he wants to break out his shiny new toy and show everybody what he can do with it. So he could have a game-scripted big game simply for this.
You're right. I mean, you're right. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens there.
Yeah. Now, Devin Singletary is my next one. We see Zach Moss sitting behind him in Buffalo. Devin Singletary, as I've said before, with no preseason, the veteran running backs are going to get the start. Who are they playing week 1? Jets, Jets. Okay. What does that mean? That means that you are going to win.
Right.
Okay. That's all that means. So Devin Singletary has the ability to, and especially with Jamal Adams now gone, who's going to stop him? There's nobody to stop the Bills. And we know that this is a run-first team, even though they went out and got Stephon Diggs. And Stephon Diggs is my next guy for my receiver because they're playing the Jets. He's a shiny new toy. He could have a game scripted just like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, to where they want to get him the ball. They want to show that Josh Allen is more than just a running quarterback, that he can actually throw the ball, which he can throw it. He just can't throw it accurately. So we got that going on with the Jets. Now, Henry Ruggs is my next guy going against the Panthers. Guys, the Panthers are horrible.
Horrible. They're a mess.
Panthers defense is absolutely horrible, and we have no clue, aside from CMC, where there's absolutely no clue what they're going to be doing on offense, because they've got a new head coach, a new OC, a new quarterback. We don't know what's going on.
It was crazy to think, because it felt like it was just yesterday that Panthers defense was pretty darn good.
Yeah.
Led by Kuechly and all these guys, and now they're just
Yeah, now Kuechly is probably going to wind up in a booth somewhere taking Gronk's spot.
Right.
And, taking Jason Witten's place. So, we don't know what's going on with that. Now, my next guy is this guy. I don't know why I get this sense that he is just a fantasy darling. Like, people are just really have a soft spot for this guy. But John Ross from the Bengals.
Mm.
Now, we know A.J. Green is back. We know Tyler Boyd is pretty much the go-to guy simply because everyone else gets hurt. But John Ross against the Chargers secondary, I think that their line is okay. I'm not sure about their secondary. And I think that with Joe Burrow coming in and the draft capital making him number 1 overall and wanting to prove something week 1, they're going to go out there and just try to light him up. And
No, you're right. They are.
Yeah, and there are going to be plenty of targets to go around. Now, A.J. Green, when your number 1 overall prospect comes out publicly before you even draft him and goes, I want A.J. Green on the team. A.J. was about to leave. He was about to walk. Cincinnati didn't want anything to do with him. They wanted to let him go, but they want to make their number 1 guy happy. So when they bring in Joe Burrow, they better have A.J. Green there. So they slap a franchise tag on him. He winds up signing it, thinking that, I can come out here and I can make a little name and show people I still got something with the number 1 overall quarterback and get paid next year somewhere else. If things don't work out, I can blame it on a rookie quarterback. People still think I have talent. They still think that I have the ability to do something, so he can get paid somewhere else next year. So John Ross, week 1, against the Chargers, might be able to blow up with that kind of great game script going on.
Absolutely. I mean, he's a fantasy darling. You're right. A lot of people are high on this guy, and he's going to have a big week 1. But what's that going to spell for the rest of the season?
Exactly. Now, my next one, I actually like this guy. We just talked about John Ross being a fantasy darling. This guy's kind of a darling of mine. Jack Doyle. Now, my wife Amanda had Doyle a couple of times last year as her tight end, and it just so happened that the weeks that she picked him up, he fell off. So she had this back and forth relationship with Jack Doyle, and it wasn't pretty. Okay. Then she found Tyler Higbee and just blew the heck up in the playoffs.
Right.
But he's going up against the Jags week 1. Now, if you don't think that Phillip Rivers loves him some tight end, with Eric Ebron being in Pittsburgh this year, there's nobody there to take up Jack Doyle's catches. We know that Rivers loves his tight end.
Oh, yeah.
Made Hunter Henry the man he is today. And I think that with that messed up defense in Jacksonville, because Calais Campbell is with Baltimore now, so he's gone. So who else is there in Jacksonville to stop the pass? There's nobody. There's nobody rushing. There's nobody, that scares you on Jacksonville, especially when you have a veteran quarterback like Rivers chucking the ball around to a sure-handed Jack Doyle. I like Jack Doyle's skill set. I think that he could pop up, but then you have that roller coaster that he showed last year. And I get that he had Jacoby Brissett, and this is an upgrade, but I think that he could be one of those guys to where they have the flash in the pan and you go out after him and you're kind of disappointed in what you get as the end result.
Well, you just answered your question there. It's a different quarterback. I mean, you're going to have Rivers. You're going to have a guy that Phillip Rivers is really one of the most productive quarterbacks in the NFL that everybody just seems to really kind of stomp on, so to speak, because the guy does throw a lot of interceptions. He never won in San Diego, and he always seems to run into the Patriots in the playoffs. But this is a guy that can have a big, consistent year. If your wife's gonna play again, I think that's maybe something she could look at if she's gonna be a returning champion. I think it's
by the
interesting.
way, is her team name this year. So.
Oh no, you told me that. That's real creative with that name. But yeah, no, I don't mind him. I think it's a great spot he's in.
Now, my last guy on the bench or on the list probably should be on a bench. Jimmy Graham.
Oh boy.
Okay. How the
darling saint.
how the mighty have fallen. Anybody who played fantasy football a few years back when Jimmy was with the Saints, he was the guy. He was the tight end to have. If you didn't get Gronk, you wanted Jimmy Graham, okay? Jimmy was the go-to guy down around the red zone. He was the one that Breeze targeted, and it was basically just chuck it up and let Jimmy go get it. Now, for whatever reason, he's not being used like that. Everybody knows that he's not out there to block. So when he comes out there, it's not like you're hiding the fact that Jimmy's out there to catch the ball. And he's got a really bad starting quarterback play with Trubisky in Chicago, okay? But week 1, they get Detroit. Now, if you don't think that Matt Stafford can light up a defense, you're wrong. And I don't care how bad Trubisky is. Jimmy Graham's like 6'6". I could throw to Jimmy Graham and be perfectly fine with it because I wouldn't need that much time. I just need to know the vicinity where he's going to be.
Well, it's not like Trubisky's bad. I mean, he had one good year where they went to the playoffs. Then he was garbage the last season. So, I mean, he's still young. There's still potential from him. I mean, obviously he's going to be talked down upon because he was drafted so highly, but is it me or does Jimmy G let up a little bit when he's going up the middle and someone's ready to clock him? Does he have a tendency to kind of pull away?
Yeah, he doesn't want to get touched. He's more of that fade route that let me run to the sideline.
Let me pitch that. Yeah.
And then I can step out of bounds. Yeah.
Yep.
He's not like your boy Kittle, who's basically a human bulldozer and will run people over.
Remember that run in New Orleans?
Yeah, that was
the run of the year.
Oh, man, everybody down here in Louisiana was just like, I can't believe that they let him do that. It's like, okay, look, do you see how big this guy is? He's going up
I felt like I was Hercules just watching that. I was like, yeah, like it's going. You know how it is when you got a big tight end. Yeah.
Hey, look, guys, that's the list for the week 1 gems and the season-long bust. It's something that I want you guys to keep in your mind when you're going week 1, because a lot of these shows that you're going to watch, they're going to talk up their draft kit or their videos that they send out for fantasy football drafts, and they want you to buy this and buy that and buy the fantasy draft kit. Well, it's great that you get the kit, but the kit's only good for one day, okay? It's your draft day. It helps you out draft your team. And remember, you cannot win a championship in the draft. You can lose one, but you can't win one, okay? Because it's a season-long thing. So we here at the Academy want you to keep in mind that we are baby stepping you along the way. We've been taking you all off season up to your draft. Now we're kind of trying to turn the corner because some of you are out there having drafts right now. No judgment, but you're having your drafts right now, and you're going to need that week 1 advice as early as possible. So we're getting you some week 1 advice right here with the professor, and we're going to go into right now our breakdown of the NFC East. Is it a little shallow? Yeah. However, you do have 2 of the top 6 tight ends in this division, okay? You've got 2 guys who are being drafted really high at the tight end position. You've got either the number 1 or number 2 running back, however you want to go in this division. You've also got one of the top 5 quarterbacks in this division, and you've got another top 3 running back also in this division. So as bad as these teams play, you still got a lot of fantasy value here on some bad teams.
You got some hidden gems, and we got one on the East Coast that I would love to talk about, but we'll get to your way up.
Well, we're gonna kick off with my boys simply for the fact that they finished 3-13.
Yeah, let's get them out of the way.
Overall, let's get this out of the way now. We talked at the top of the show, or at part of the top of the show, about my boy Alex Smith. I love Alex. He's starting on the PUP list, so he's not going to be any kind of threat to Dwayne Haskins. But as far as Haskins goes, is Haskins ready to take that next step? And does the change in the head coach and the OC, is that a plus or a minus for him?
Well, the change is going to be a plus, Dean. Let's not go anywhere. Let's not get crazy. We do not want to talk about that idiot on the sidelines for Washington for so many years. I don't know how you were not beside yourself.
Dan Snyder's down there?
Right. Well, that's the other idiot. But Dwayne Haskins has shown me glimpses of maybe he can do it. Now, there have been games, though, where the NFL seems like it's too big of a stage for him as well. So this is kind of like a mixed bag. Am I drafting this guy? No, I'm not touching with a 10-foot pole. I'm sorry, Dean. I'm really not. You can be in love with Haskins, but I'm not as far as a fantasy owner.
No, as far as fantasy goes, Dwayne Haskins is not somebody who you should target. And here's the thing is that a lot of people forget that Haskins only had 1 year of experience in college. Was it a absolutely phenomenal set the world on fire year with Ohio State? Yes. But he only had 1 year. The guy had like 12 games under his belt as a starter before he got drafted.
How many stacked teams has Urban Meyer built? I mean, in Ohio State and Florida and Utah, I mean the list goes on and on. Who is he going to throw to? Who the hell is he going to throw to? Give me this wide receiver layer, because all I've seen is Terry McLaurin, McLaurin. I think he's good, but who else is there?
There's a guy, and I'm glad you brought it up, because there is a guy who there's been some talk about Golden. His name is Antonio Gandy Golden. Okay. And there's a lot of good things being said about this guy. Is he going to be fantasy relevant? Probably not. Terry McLaurin is the only Redskin, the only Washington player who I'm going to touch as far as fantasy goes.
Here's a question I have for you, and this is just for Washington to maybe be a little bit more decent on the field. Can you put guys like Geis or AP out in the flat, like for pitch and chuck throws? Like, can you do that? I mean,
you can, but here's the thing about the backfield. And real quick, let's wrap up Haskins and
I'm sorry, I wasn't trying to derail you. But
no, because that's our next topic is the backfield of Washington. But Haskins, can he take that next step? I think he can. I think it's a delayed learning process with him. Like I said, he only had a limited amount of starts in college. It wasn't like he was a 4-year starter and he had all this experience and he can come out and chuck the ball all over the place. And he has confidence in that. And Kyle Allen, I mean, I'm glad that Alex, and I'm bringing it up so much because I think that Alex Smith will be able to mentor and push Haskins more than Kyle Allen will. Kyle Allen, the only leg up he has on Haskins is the fact that he came from Carolina along with the head coach and the OC, so he already knows the lingo and the scheme that they're wanting to run. But there's no way that I'm scared of Kyle Allen if I'm Dwayne Haskins. Now, as far as the running backs go, and you bring this up, let me read off the list of running backs that they have in Washington. Darius Geis, Adrian Peterson, Antonio Gibson, who was drafted this year, Peyton Barber, Bryce Love, who was drafted last year, J.D. McKissick, who used to be in Seattle. Okay. Now, Geis was drafted 3 years ago. Bryce Love was drafted 2 years ago. And Antonio Gibson was drafted last year. What are we doing with running backs? We've got 6 of these guys, and we don't have a 1.
What that shows you is that they just don't know who their guy is.
Yeah, nobody stepped up. This is the thing. Nobody stepped up. Guys can't stay healthy. We don't know what we have in Gibson. Bryce Love got hurt, and Adrian Peterson and
Is old.
him and Tom Brady are at the retirement home trading recipes. Okay. I mean,
okay, AP is not that far not that close to Brady's number, but he's high.
as far as running backs go, yeah,
he is. He is.
In running back, look, for those of you who don't know, who think that we're just down in AP, don't get me wrong. I love AP. I love what he brings to the field. I love the attitude that he brings. But when it comes to running backs in the NFL, it's like dog years. Okay.
Yeah.
These guys age faster than any other position in the league. Okay. You see Tom Brady, he's been playing for 2 decades. Yeah, he's a quarterback. He might get dinged around a lot, but the way that the rules have changed, they get protected a lot more now. But with running backs, there's not really a whole lot that's changed about how much punishment running backs get. Plus the fact that when these guys are in college, they're getting run the hell out of in college. Okay, that's why I am shocked that Mark Ingram and Derrick Henry, coming from Alabama, who loves running backs into the ground, still have something left in the tank. That's just phenomenal to me. But yeah, these guys in the backfield for Washington, until someone steps up, until someone has a clear-cut job as a starter, as the number one, and it's not a running back by committee, there is no one on this squad that I'm touching in fantasy. We go to the wide receiver core, and you already said it. There's nobody aside from Terry McLaurin that I want as far as fantasy. And we talked a little bit before the show started. Debo, Odell Beckham, and Deontay Johnson from Pittsburgh are all guys that Terry McLaurin outperformed last year. He was 0.1 points behind Calvin Ridley, who is being taken at least a couple of rounds before he is. Okay, so Terry McLaurin is the clear-cut number one go-to guy. And let's not forget that McLaurin and Haskins played together at Ohio State. So for that 1 year that Haskins just had a phenomenal year, his security blanket is still with him in the pros.
That is big. I mean, that's a saving grace that those two were together in college.
And it goes to show you how much of a learning curve quarterback is as opposed to wide receiver in the NFL. These guys in the NFL, when they come from college wide receiver to NFL wide receiver, there's, aside from adjusting to the skill set of the DBs, there's not a whole lot that changes. Your route tree doesn't change. How well you run a route, you can get better at that. But when it comes to quarterbacks, there is so much more pressure and so much more going on in the NFL as opposed to college that's why you see these guys have a hard time. So Haskins, I think this year, Haskins has an opportunity to show that he can take a step forward. And with having we saw later in the year that him and McLaurin finally started clicking. So look for some big things from McLaurin and Haskins this year, especially with a coach and an offensive coordinator that know how to use them. Now, as far as tight ends go, look, the tight ends and the running backs are the same thing in Washington. They're 6 on each. Okay, Jeremy Sprinkle is the guy who is the starting tight end for the Washington. And as they say with quarterbacks, when you have 2, you don't have 1. Well, with tight ends, if you have 6, you don't have anybody. So
it's like open tryouts in Washington.
Pretty much. I mean, hey, I'll go try out. I'll go. And then I'll take that $250,000 siphon that you get for sitting out the year with COVID. So next up, we've got the New York Giants, finished 4-12 last year. Okay. Now we saw in Carolina with a absolutely out of this world and out of his mind running back with Christian McCaffrey that a team can still finish badly. Okay. Daniel Jones, quarterback for the New York Giants. My question for him is the same question I had for Haskins. Will he take a step up? He's got a solid run game. He's clearly the man in New York. And he's got multiple wide receivers who, while they might not have any value in fantasy individually, collectively for Daniel Jones, I think that this could be a breakout year for him.
Oh, it's big. I mean, he obviously threw for over 3,000 yards last season, 24 touchdowns. The guy, I think is a guy that's getting overlooked, and he's been waiting to get that nod, and it finally does. And with Saquon kind of being that big legitimate threat on the backfield on the run game, it opens up the pass game that much more. So I think Daniel Jones is going to use that to his advantage. I think he can have 30 touchdowns this year. I really do.
Yeah, he could really go, especially playing in that division where, okay, I might be biased on this one, but aside from the Redskins defense putting up 5 first-round draft picks on their front 7, are you really scared of Dallas? I mean, their defense might have some guys on it that you like, but I'm not scared of them. I'm definitely not scared of Philly. And the Giants defense is just horrible. So that means that their offense is going to have to win games for them.
Yep.
So.
Oh, this can be a big offensive year.
Oh, yeah. Now, Saquon. Is there anything else to say? I mean, when you get down to the level of success where your name is either an initial or your first name can be used to just describe you, okay, that's something. And he had a little injury. He's had injuries before. Should that concern you at all? I mean, do we have anything else to say about Saquon?
Well, I think there's been a lot of people that have said that he is like this generational changing running back. Okay, let's not get carried away. He obviously is the top 3 back in all of the NFL. The little injury does kind of, I guess, hinge you as a fantasy football owner, but are you not going to take him if he's on the board in the first round? The question is, you are going to take him. So yeah. It's,
Now, okay, here's my question for Saquon. This is the only question I have for Saquon is he, if you're sitting there with the first overall pick.
Oh, boy.
Do you take him or do you take CMC?
You know what? Neither.
So you're going to take Zeke.
Yeah.
Number 1 overall.
I probably would take Zeke.
Okay, now, for those of you who haven't watched TikTok, there's this one TikTok that my wife loves. It's a African-American couple, and she runs up to him and goes, babe, I got one for you. And she tells him a joke. And whenever he's done laughing, he goes, get out. So I'm laughing at this one. Get out. Okay.
I'm taking Zeke. I don't know what to say. Now, if I come to your draft, because I'm thinking about making a trip to Lafayette, by the way.
Okay.
And I might do it the first week of September. I might pick Saquon, and you'll be like, what about that one time on my show? I know you'd pull that out. It's like, dude, just stop. First of all, you're eating. Just don't talk while you eat. So right now, I got a better feeling with Zeke. I'm sorry.
All right, look. For purposes of the show, just so I can have it on record, I have taken Saquon before as the number 1 overall pick. I would take, if I wound up with the number 1 overall pick in our draft, which for those of you who don't know, when we go to the draft, we find out our draft position at the draft.
Yeah, that's the best way to do it.
By pulling a card. Okay, so I get some playing cards. We lay it out on the table.
Right.
As commissioner, I am the last one to pick. Okay, that's only fair. I'm the last guy to pick. So if it falls that I have the number 1 overall pick, it is purely by chance. It's not by setup. I didn't rig anything. Okay, all the other 11 guys or 11 people, because my wife's playing this year too. So all the 11 other people who are playing have already picked their spot. If I wind up with the number 1 pick, I will be taking Saquon, just for the simple fact that with CMC having a change at quarterback, having a change at OC, having a change at head coach, I don't feel good about that with the number 1 overall pick.
Right.
Now, if I'm sitting there with 2nd or 3rd and CMC's on the board, yeah, I'm not stupid. I'm taking CMC.
Right. And then to answer your question, if it's Saquon or CMC, I'd definitely go Saquon. But I'm just saying I like Zeke if I have the number 1 pick. But that's just me.
Okay. And look, guys, I have it up here behind my board. I don't know if you can see it too well, but it's hashtag trust your gut. Okay, I'll put the hashtag on pretty much all of my videos, all of my episodes. You got to trust your gut when it comes to
I don't like trusting my gut because the Dallas Cowboys make me sick just as much as they make you sick. But I don't know. I have a feeling about Zeke. I just do.
But see, that's your gut. That's your gut feeling. It might turn your stomach.
Yeah.
But you're trusting your gut.
Yeah.
So. Okay, so let's get into the wide receiving core for the Giants. Darius Slayton, Sterling Shepard, Golden Tate. As I said, when we referenced Daniel Jones, I'm not targeting any of these guys individually, but collectively, they could be a very good trio of wide receivers for Daniel Jones.
If I had to pick one, I like Darius Slayton really the most. That's a guy that I think could really be – I mean, obviously he's a lot younger than Golden Tate, but, I mean, he's got fresher legs. He's got good arms. You know, good hands. I think he could have a bigger year. I think he had 8 touchdowns last year. So, I mean, I think he could have a good year. If you give me 10 touchdowns in the season, I think that's good to own on my fantasy football team.
Definitely. It's the only thing that's going to scare you is the game script is if by some miracle they wind up getting a lead and being able to hold on to it. You know that they're going to just run the ball, just hand it to Saquon.
Right.
And that's what makes Saquon such a valuable player is that he is basically game script proof. You're not going to script any kind of game plan and not include Saquon as the focal point. So that being said, and we're talking about wide receivers, does Evan Ingram, tight end, fall into that Travis Kelce, George Kittle mold where he's more of a receiver than he is a tight end?
Well, he's got that build. I mean, he's definitely got the look of it, but do I trust him to own him on my fantasy football team?
Yeah, because he's being look, for those of you who don't know, he's being drafted as like the 6th overall tight end off the board. Okay, so he's fallen like 5, 6, somewhere in that range.
Sure.
You've got the big 3, you've got Ertz, Kittle, and Andrews, and then behind that you've got Zach Ertz, who we'll get into here in just a second with Philly. But behind Ertz is falling Evan Ingram. Now, anybody who had Ingram last year knows that he got hurt. So, I mean, you've got that injury risk, and you have an injury risk with all players, but some guys are more prone to getting injured than others, and Evan Ingram is no exception.
Right. You're right. Not touching him.
So we go into the Dallas Cowboys. Since we're going up the list, 8-8. Now, I get a lot of flack about Washington's team being 3-13, being 4-12. But if you look over the majority of, actually pretty much Jason Garrett's entire career as head coach, I believe there was a 17-year span where the Cowboys were 136 and 136.
And they're still America's team.
They were the epitome of mediocrity in the NFL. Okay? So we know that Jerry Jones has no problem going out and getting talent. We just know that he's got a problem paying it.
And they got your wife's boy, Mike McCarthy. Not the sexiest hire, in my opinion, but it was a safe one.
Well, look, the only reason that McCarthy is there, and I'll put this out there so everybody can understand my feelings about it. The only reason that McCarthy is there is because he answered the questions correctly when Jerry Jones says, "Hey, do you mind if I make some calls?" And McCarthy went, "Yeah, sure, boss, no problem." Anyone else, that's why Bill Parcells didn't last in Dallas, because he wanted to go shop for the groceries if he was going to be making the soup. So
I heard Dallas wanted Urban Meyer. I knew that wasn't going to work.
No.
Herbs has to be the king of the hill there.
Yeah, there's too much ego there. Plus the fact that would probably wind up being a Nick Saban type experiment.
Right.
So, which as a Washington fan, I have absolutely no problem with. Go ahead. Bring as much garbage to Dallas. I mean, that's why it's got the hole in the roof, is so that you can dump some more garbage in there.
Oh my
So,
goodness.
I got to give them some slack about that, because
Sure.
when you really get into it and you look at it from an unbiased an unbiased opinion of fantasy, from fantasy point of view, Dak Prescott, quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys, is probably one of the better options you're going to have this year at quarterback.
Well, it's funny because a lot of people will not realize how good his numbers have been. I mean, he throws for almost 5,000 yards, 30 touchdowns. I mean, he's kind of got that. He's got that year where it's unbelievable, but he's also kind of got that. But Dallas isn't winning enough games, so what's wrong with Dak? And there really hasn't been anything wrong with Dak.
Yeah.
It's just, it's the rest of the supporting cast. It's the defense that really blows. He is obviously a top-flight fantasy football player. I mean, you don't want to lose any trust in this guy, because I think he's going to have the similar year that he had this past year.
Yeah, I think he actually, with playing under the franchise tag and betting on himself, a la Kirk Cousins, he signed the tag. He didn't get the deal done by the 15th, and he's going in with a chip on his shoulder. They got him CeeDee Lamb. Michael Gallup is still there, and they've paid Amari Cooper. Is Cooper healthy? We don't know. We'll find out week 1. We've got Zeke. Zeke's gotten paid. There's no reason for him not to perform. So the cast that they have around him, and they got Blake Jarwin to take Jason Witten's spot at tight end. And some people are high on him as if you're in a deeper league, 2 tight end league, then maybe Blake Jarwin comes in and gets some touches. Maybe, don't know. But I think that this offense this year with McCarthy, don't be surprised if this doesn't run through Zach's right arm instead of through Zeke's legs, which would be a huge mistake for the Cowboys. But I'm all about the Cowboys making mistakes.
Yeah, but you're right. I mean, Mike McCarthy makes it interesting. I don't know if he's going to shy away from Zeke. I mean, did Mike McCarthy ever have a Zeke type running back in Green Bay? I don't think so. Green Bay hasn't had.
I'm on Green.
A while. Yeah, that was a while ago, though.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a while ago. But you're right. If you're going to name one, you kind of pulled that out, pretty deep. But you're right, though. I mean, but if Dak throws a lot more.
I'm married to a cheesehead. What do you expect?
Yeah, well, nobody's perfect.
Hey, she married me, so we can turn that around on that.
Aaron Rodgers makes me sick, but but I'll talk to your wife about that at a later date. But the thing is about Dak is if he just throw the ball up a lot more, the interception total is going to be higher too. So you got to understand that he does throw high risk, kind of high risk reward, high risk throws. He does have that in his armor.
So getting into the running back situation, we've talked about Zeke, and there's really not a whole lot to say. Just like I said before, when you get terms like CMC, Zeke, and Saquon, I mean, these guys have reached the Madonna share level of fame where your first name or your initials are pretty much it. That's all you need to say. Tony Pollard is a name that's being thrown out a lot in fantasy circles as somebody to target later in the draft as a handcuff to Zeke. So if Tony Pollard is out there, let's say 12th round, 13th round, and you're looking for a bench spot to fill, even if you're not a owner of Zeke, there's something to be said that if Zeke does get hurt, Pollard could be really good trade bait because you know that he's it.
No, it's true. I mean, you saw me pick up Pollard for that same reason on my mock draft the other day that we did.
Yeah, we're not
that was
talking
the
about that draft.
reason. You didn't like that team, did you? No,
He
I
gave
mean
me
that's the
2
reason.
Cowboys guys. Come on.
What do you mean? Okay, so when Colt picked up Zeke, that must have been just the
Oh,
end of your world. He must have
well,
been grounded for like a month, you know.
I threatened. I threatened.
Nah, man. He's a
But
good
yeah.
pickup late.
So Tony Pollard is somebody that you do want to keep an eye on, and I've said it before as far as the wide receiving core goes. And real quick, I'm going to touch on this just real quick so we can just say that we got it over with. There's not a tight end on Dallas that I want. Blake Jarwin is not the answer to Jason Witten. Jason Witten is a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's got the numbers to back it up. He's got the longevity, but he's not. Blake Jarwin is not Jason Witten, so we can skip the tight end for Dallas. As far as the wide receivers go, I think even though they're going to put up good numbers, how much do they cancel each other out? Because you've got Amari Cooper, who we've got the injury risk. We've got Michael Gallup, who is second fiddle. And then we've got CeeDee Lamb, who's a wild card, who even though he might be able to stretch the field, he's still a rookie.
You're right. I mean, it's going to be interesting. I'm really kind of curious how that all plays out, to be honest.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. And I myself don't want any part of it.
No.
Even if I didn't have a propensity to not draft Cowboys, I'm not picking any wide receiver. If I didn't have a preset,
you wouldn't pick Amari Cooper?
No. I wouldn't.
Wow.
I wouldn't.
Wow.
I think that they're because where he's being drafted, I'm not going to pay that kind of price.
Okay, I'm not reaching, and of course I thought Dallas reached when they got him. They gave up a first-round draft pick to get him, but I thought it panned out pretty well. I thought he did well. I mean, he wasn't doing much in Oakland. To be honest, he was not being utilized.
No, and he got an upgraded quarterback.
Right, he got an upgraded quarterback. I mean, we can always talk about the second comings to Carr. I mean, he had like one great year, and that's been it.
Yeah.
But I'm drafting Amari Cooper if he is there, not early, but if he is late, if he's still available there, maybe around the 7th or 8th round, I think I'm going to grab him. I really am.
Yeah, the only unfortunate thing is I don't see him falling that far.
That's true. I mean, people are going to reach. So
yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Is that where he's being drafted? I'm not reaching for somebody who is basically wide receiver committee. Okay, it's the same thing as Tyreek Hill being drafted in first and second round. I'm not touching Hill that high. I don't care that he's with KC and he can put up 40-point games because there's also other games where he puts up a donut. So those are guys who you have to look at, and this is what we talk about here at the Academy. You have to look at the environment around these guys, not just their talent level, because their talent level is unquestioned. They're playing in the NFL for a reason, okay?
Right.
But as far as being able to produce on a weekly, consistent basis for your fantasy team, I'm not putting my faith that high in somebody who's could be scripted out of games. You've got the second, third best, in some people's cases, first best running back, the game script is running through the backfield. The game script could run where you're not getting thrown. Amari Cooper's not getting thrown to. He'll disappear because he's going to draw double coverage, and it's going to be Michael Gallup and CeeDee Lamb. It's just, who do you pick? What week?
Yeah.
You don't know. Yeah. So thankfully, mercifully, Dallas Cowboys are done with. So we're moving on to how Philly won the division. I don't know.
Your second favorite team.
This is last year. If you didn't follow the NFC East, nobody wanted to. There was actually a point in time where the Redskins were mathematically capable of winning the NFC East.
Didn't they call it the NFC least or
Yes,
something? Yeah, yeah.
NFC least. Nobody wanted to win this division. Philly finally won it with a 9-7 record. If I'm not mistaken, I think the Giants beat the Cowboys late in the season, and Philly wound up beating the Redskins.
Something like that.
So I think that's how it played out last year. But I was never more happy for a Washington loss, just so that the Cowboy fans that I work with couldn't say, hey, we won the division. So, Carson Wentz. Now, Carson Wentz to me is just an absolute headache as far as fantasy goes because I don't trust him.
What don't you trust about him?
The injury.
Right. I mean, but it's been a while now. It's.
Well,
I mean,
here, go ahead.
He put up a season where he threw for over 4,000 yards at 27 touchdowns. I mean, he's not. I mean, are you going to hold that against him though in fantasy?
The thing that kind of compounds my fear for his injury risk is the fact that Philly went out of their way to draft Jalen Hurts in the draft. If you're taking a quarterback who was pretty well valued as a quarterback coming out of the draft to back up Carson Wentz, you couldn't pay Nick Foles enough to stay with you.
Sure.
Okay. So you lost your best backup option, and you have a history of Carson Wentz getting hurt for multiple games, and you go out and you get hurt. Is there something going on with his health that we don't know about?
That could be. Yeah.
That's where my concern is. Then there's a lot of concerns on Philly's team as far as fantasy goes. From the top down, from QB down to tight end and running back and wide receiver in between. We're going to get into running back right now. Miles Sanders is the guy who's being drafted second, first, middle, or back end of the second round, depending upon how it falls. There's rumors of Philly wanted to go get a veteran running back. Now, they've got Boston Scott. How much of a threat is he to Miles Sanders?
Yeah, I haven't really taken much stock of the Eagles' backfield, to be honest. Nothing really pops out at me. I thought maybe they would have gone out and grabbed Ronnie Mustard or something,
Look, there was the coach came out and in typical coach speak didn't specify anybody, but he said, quote, we blew it on getting a veteran running back. Well, the veteran running back at the time that he was alluding to was Carlos Hyde, who wound up signing with Seattle to back up Chris Carson. So if they're still out there, and Devontae Freeman's still out there, if they're looking for a veteran running back to bring in with Miles Sanders, now people have said that Miles Sanders is the next CMC, that's the role that he's going to be used in as that pass catching, quick, mobile, elusive running back. If that's truly how they feel, why are they looking for a veteran running back to bring in?
It's going to be interesting. I am not sure how it's all going to play out in Philly. Philly's kind of a little bit of a mess right now. Deshaun Jackson.
Yeah. Now, look, I'll tell you right now, if Miles Sanders falls to the third, I'm all about him. Okay. Just simply based on volume. If nothing happens, nobody gets signed, Miles Sanders is a better runner than Boston Scott. So barring injury, I'm not worried about Boston Scott cutting into Miles Sanders' playtime. Okay. Or his targets or anything like that. If he falls to the third. Second round is a little too high a price for me to pay for a guy who I got questions about.
Sure.
Wide receiver, Deshaun Jackson, Jalen Reagor, rookie, first pick for them, by the way, and Alshon Jeffrey, who, if I'm not mistaken, is not going to be ready for week 1.
Right. That's what I was hearing.
So you got Deshaun Jackson and Jalen Reagor. Reagor is being brought in and rumored to be the replacement for Deshaun Jackson. He's of that same mold. He's a little bigger build, but he's got that deep threat capability that Deshaun Jackson used to have. Are any three of these guys quarterback proof if Carson Wentz goes down?
No, I am very concerned for the Philadelphia Eagles. Outside, I mean, I like Carson Wentz if he stays healthy, but if he goes down, then they're going to be in for a long season.
Yeah, and I mean, I like Jalen Reagor as a late round flyer. We're talking 13th, 14th round.
Sure.
Okay, to kind of stash him on your bench, see what they're going to do, see how things are going to go. Can he step up? Because he's in a place right now with Alshon Jeffrey not being ready and Deshaun Jackson on the decline. He's got a shot to step in as the number one option in Philly as far as wide receiver. And, hey, those passes got to go somewhere. Now, we skip into the tight end spot with Philly as our last part of this breakdown, and we look at Zach Ertz, who is being drafted as the fourth best tight end in the league, even though Dallas Goedert is right there with him. Okay? Now, I'm not saying that he's right there with him as far as fantasy capital, as far as draft capital, where you're going to be drafting Dallas Goedert or Zach Ertz, whoever you feel. Dallas Goedert's way down the list on tight ends to draft, but everybody is absolutely in love with Zach Ertz. What they seem to forget is the only reason that he had those numbers last year was because the football gods reached down and absolutely decimated the wide receiving core for Philly, and Zach Ertz was the only option.
And I thought, I mean, like you said, Zach Ertz's rankings have been pretty high, for a tight end. So I think he can do some good things. So I think he would be very valuable to get somewhere, I don't know, maybe late, fantasy football pick.
Yeah, but this is the only issue that we're having with Zach Ertz is that if you don't draft him as the fourth or fifth tight end off the board, you're not going to get him.
Right.
He's falling around and we had the same thing with Evan Ingram. If you don't draft him high, you're not going to get him. And there are guys out there, Mike Gesicki comes to mind. Hayden Hurst now moved from Baltimore down to Atlanta. These are guys that you can get later who are probably going to have as much production as Zach Ertz can get you, and you don't have to spend that high of a draft pick to get them.
Right. It's going to be interesting. Now, we do have a tendency to see in some fantasy football drafts some guys slipping. Some guys fall down the ranks. Some guys kind of slip through the cracks. So it'll be interesting to see if any of those guys slip.
Yeah, and that's one thing like we talk about here on the Academy is take what the draft gives you and be aware of what's going on around you. If you are in the last half of the draft or the first half of the draft, you're going to have to be proactive when it comes to runs. You're going to see runs on guys. You're going to see runs on wide receivers. You're going to see runs on running backs, runs on quarterbacks. When you get to the fifth round, and let's say that you're the first half of the fifth round, that's where your reliable quarterbacks, Matt Ryan, Russell Wilson, those guys are going to go. Kyler Murray's going to go there. Okay. Deshaun Watson, Dak Prescott, those guys are going fifth, sixth round. So when you are coming into those rounds and none of those guys are off the board, you're going to have to hone in on that one guy that you want, and you're going to have to reach for him. You're going to start, if you want to be successful at your draft, you want to be the guy to start a run. You don't want to be the guy to come at the tail end, taking the leftovers and hitting that panic button because you see all these guys flying off the board and you're like, oh my God, I'm not going to get the guy I want unless I reach for him right now. That's how guys wind up losing their draft and losing their championship.
Be very aware of your surroundings. Be very aware of other people's teams. And that's one thing a lot of fantasy football owners fail to do is take another look at the board. Take a look at what other people are doing. So.
Well, look, guys, that was a breakdown for the NFC East with special guest, Professor Chet. We appreciate the time that he spends with us. Always a pleasure. And, regardless of his feelings about Zeke, he's still my boy. We won't hold that against him, to each their own. But, with the draft coming closer, the fantasy football drafts coming closer and closer, if your draft is starting up soon, comment, like, and share down below. While you're down there, go ahead and subscribe for me. And leave me a message and let me know what I can do to help your draft. We do mock drafts, personalized ones for our subscribers. And we go through and we show you what it's going to look like if you want to go wide receiver heavy, if you want to go zero wide receiver, if you want to go a balanced attack, or if you want to reach for certain guys. Let me know what you want, and we'll do our best to get your mock draft as the next show. Remember, last episode yesterday, we talked about your favorite food. Chet, I've loved sending you pictures of the food that I make. I love torturing you.
I hold it against you every time, too.
I know. We talked. We're gonna put you on the spot as we close out this episode. What is your favorite game time food? We had thrown out yesterday: pizza, wings, burgers, nachos, and hot dogs.
What's my favorite go-to at Zia's?
What is your favorite go-to game day food? If you're watching, you sitting down.
I'm a wings guy. I like good wings. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you like the buffalo style or do you like barbecue? What do you like going on?
I like barbecue and buffalo. I'll mix it up a little bit.
Well, I'll tell you what we're going to do is when we do our food episode, we're going to have on there my personal recipe for homemade barbecue sauce. We're going to show you guys how to make it. We're going to throw together some game day food, and we're going to show you guys what a spread at the Dean's house looks like on game day. Okay?
Oof.
So prepare yourself. Chet, you know what I'm talking about. You've seen the pictures, and I know you wanted to come over. So we'll see what we can do for our draft day at Zia. Hope to see you there. Guys, we'll make sure that we post all the end results for our draft, and you can determine who won our fantasy draft of record. Okay? This has been the Dean, special guest, Professor Chet. This has been Fantasy Football Academy 2020. We're out here. Remember, mask up if you're going out. Take care of each other, guys.